Catholic University of Warsaw, and subsequently he did his degree in history, his postgraduate work in history there as well. Lukasz has published a book on Father Bernard, whom he will be speaking to us about, who is one of the venerables of the Polish province. So over to you, Lukasz, to lead us in this next session.
In the beginning, I'd like to apologize all the native English speakers because of my poor English. That was quite difficult to me to translate some phrases of Father Bernard, because for me English is only the scholar language, so I don't have this ease of expression in this language, but I hope that you will be able to understand it. If not, please ask. I will try to explain. I will do my best. What I'd like to present to you is the second step of the meditation, because what we have heard today and yesterday was about the meditation, contemplation of the Passion. But that's the part we have to do to meditate what was the Passion of Christ. But the second step is try to live according what we read in the Gospel, what we can meditate on the base of the Gospel narration of the Passion of Jesus. And this is something very important, something what was very important also to our founder. We have in Poland other congregation which is called the Passionist sister. Unfortunately, these are not the Passionist nuns that was found by St. Paul of the Cross. Certainly we have sisters of the Passionist sister of St. Paul of the Cross as well, but also there is the Polish congregation. These are the Sisters of the Passion, or the Passionist sisters. And their founder gave them as the form of expression of their charism to meditate, to celebrate the Via Crucis each day. So the sisters celebrate, the sisters meditate the Passion according to the 14th station of the cross each day. For us, our founder wanted something more, not to going by some kind of devotion to the Passion, but to make this meditation our lives, part of our life. So that's why he was emphasized this expression of the presence of God, be in the presence of God. For him, all the life of the Passionist was one meditation, was one retreat, we can say, concentrated especially on the Passion, on the theme of the Passion of the Cross. But that was the first step, as I said. The second step is try to express this Passion in our daily life, especially when we can see the suffer of the others, the suffer of the error, which is around us. And one of the testimonies that we have in our congregation, which is not very well known outside Poland, was Father Bernard Kryszkiewicz. I know that the Polish names and Polish surnames are very complicated, so I will try to avoid using it. But what I have to say in the beginning, sometimes when we are thinking about the saints, we are thinking about the older men or older women, but in our congregation we have a lot of young saints, a lot of young blessed and a lot of young venerables. And in between them we have also Father Bernard. When he died, he was only 30 years old, so he was a very young priest. at that time. We can ask what this young priest who started his priesthood just before the Second World War, and most part of his priesthood life was the war and then occupation, can show us about the meditation, contemplation of the Passion, and how to live the Passion of the Christ in our world today. So in the beginning, I'd like to present you a little bit of the context of our province. Because in this year we celebrate 100 years of Passionist presence in Poland. So the first monastery was founded in 17th June 1923, so exactly 100, almost exactly 100 years ago. And this first foundation was possible thanks to Pope Pius XI. He was before the nuncio in Poland, and when he came back to Italy, then he became the Pope, he realized that Poland after First World War needs to have more religious order, more religious men and women to encourage Polish people to re-establish not only the country, which received their independence after more than 120 years of occupation, but also to re-establish the religious life of the society. So he was really interested to send as many religious as it was possible. And he also knew before the Passionists, so he thought that it could be very important for the country to have also the spiritual sons of St. Paul of the Cross in Poland. But that wasn't the first proposition of the foundation in Poland, because the first one was done in 1782, so very shortly after the death of our founder. And it could be the first place where the Passionists went abroad to Italy. That was the foundation, that was the proposition of the Count Wincenty Tyszkiewicz. He was one of the officials of the last Polish king, Stanisław August, and he had very big property in Swiss Watch. Now this land is in Belarus, but in that time that was part of Poland, and he wanted to invite Passionists to his property. We don't know exactly why this foundation wasn't realized, why it wasn't happened. There are two various opinions about this. One we can find in the history of the congregation, where it's written that probably it wasn't according to the spirit of the congregation. And the other one, because the Tyszkiewicz wanted to give to the Passionists not only the church and the monastery, but also the monthly salary, monthly income. And that wasn't in that time very well accepted in our congregation because of the poverty, etc. So that was the one opinion. And the second one was of Father Wojtyska, who was the professor of the history. Some of you probably could know him. And he said that probably that was the other problem was that our general asked to have the permission of the king. And probably even the petition was done, but in that time Poland lost her independence. And that was the beginning of 120 years of Polish occupation by three countries, Russia, Prussia, and Austria. So that foundation wasn't successful, but this doesn't mean that the Polish people didn't start the religious life among the Passionists in other countries. The first Poles who entered to the congregation was Father Stanisław Parczyk. This is him. In the beginning of 19th century, so he entered congregation. He entered congregation 1842, and he was sent then to United States, to Pittsburgh, when he was one of the co-founders of this American foundation. The other one who joined the Passionists in Bulgaria, in Balkans mission, was Father Grzegorz, and he entered congregation 1874, and we can see him in Balkans mission before he joined the Passionists in Poland. Both of them knows the Passionists in Rome. Both of them probably were connected with the Passionists by accident. So in our faith, we don't say that something is an accident, but it's God's providence. So probably that was God's providence that they came to the Passionists. They entered the Passionists. Father Parczyk entered at Monte Argentario, and Father Grzegorz in Bulgaria. So he was in the mission. And in 20s, so 1922, I think, he was sent back to Rome because he lost his sense of view. Eyesight. So there were more Poles in Bulgarian mission, but in that moment of the history, we had this very big tension also in our congregation with the duties we had there. So some of them left congregation to live the diocesan priest life. The other three Passionists entered congregation in Italy, two of them in Rome and one in the northern province. So Brother Kazimierz Staszewski and Brother Wacław Kamieński was the first, and then they were joined by Father Juliusz Dzidowski, who was the co-founder of our province. In 1923, our general agreed to send 3 religious to Poland to see the possibility of opening the new foundation in Poland. Passionists received several propositions for this foundation. Most of them were former religious monasteries. Some of them were very small. Even they were located very well. They were so small that it wasn't possible to have the novitiate there, etc. Some of them were almost destroyed, as you can see on this picture. And unfortunately, this is the proposition that was accepted. So the Passionists accepted the proposition of blessed Bishop of Płock, Antoni Nowowiejski, to start the foundation in the monastery of San Jacob and San Ain in Przasnysz. Nowowiejski wanted to have the religious there. This is the former Franciscan church and the Franciscan monastery. The church was founded by Paweł Kostka, the brother of San Stanislao Kostka, maybe you know him. That was the young Jesuit saint for the Franciscans. Unfortunately, during the occupation, many of the orders were completely thrown out of Poland. So the monasteries were abandoned for a long time. Some of them were destroyed. Some of them were rearranged for the schools or other public places. That was happened with Passionist, where there was the school and then something like the hospital for the soldiers or and other stuff. But unfortunately, during the First World War, Passionist was nearby the border of Prussia, so the north part of Poland in that time, and then there was the Prussia. So the tension between the Russian and Prussian soldiers were very big there, and the front moved through the Passionist a couple of times. Unfortunately, that was the highest building in the area, so was destroyed from both sides, Russian and Prussian. And that was the state that Archbishop Nowowiejski saw in 1919. So he tried to find someone who'd like to rebuild this monastery and try to re-establish a religious life in the monastery and in the shrine, because it's also the shrine of Immaculate Conception, which is very, very famous among the Franciscan. They have the devotion to Immaculate Conception and the devotion of Saint Anne. That's why these names. And the Jacob was the patron of the church, which was there before building this complex. So Passionists accepted this place because of a couple of reasons. Not only because of the willing of the Archbishop, which was very profound. Archbishop even went to Rome to ask the general to accept his proposition, but also because it was very well located in that time. That was the one reason. That was quite big building that was in that time possible to arrange the novitiate and then the seminary there. And the region was very devoted, so the place was very well known among the people there. So that was also the possibility of having vocations there. What happened, as we know, after Passionists came to that place. So the beginning of the foundation was very difficult because the monastery was ruined, was destroyed. So Passionists have to rebuild the building. And the second task was to organize the life of the community. There were 3 Passionists who came in June 1923. There were Father Juliusz Dzidowski, the Passionist, the Polish Passionist from Italy, Brother Kazimir, and Father Tyburcjusz, who was the general consultor at that time. In December of 1923, they were joined by 2 other Passionists from Italy, Father Bartolomeo Rapetti, who was nominated as the first superior of the community, and Father Pius Falco. This is the first community, the first photo we have of the community of the Passionists in Poland from 1927. That was the visit of the General Father Kierkeles. When the church and the monastery was rebuilt, we can say that this picture is around 1927, maybe 28. Another problem appears. The candidates start to join the Passionist life. The novitiate starts to operate. But many of them, after a couple of weeks, or sometimes 2 or 3 months of autumn, when the winter starts, they went out. Because the Passionists had very strict rule of life, which was not very good for our climate, especially for the winter time. For instance, they had to wear the sandals without the socks all the year, for almost all the year, even inside the building, which had no central heating or nothing like that. So that was very, very difficult life. So the first community, the first Passionists, had to try to combine the life of the Passionists, the life which was described in the rule, with the possibilities of Polish conditions, also the climate, also the possibilities, for instance, of preaching. We have very strong tradition. I mention it here because it will be useful for us in the next step of our presentation. In Poland, there is strong tradition, for instance, in the Lent, to give the small mission, like 3 or 4 days, in the parishes. And the parishes invited religious, invited priests to give these retreats, we called it. But it's like the mission. So you have a couple of preaching a day with some sermons for the groups, like for the men's, like for the women, like for the mothers, for the children, etc., etc. So that was very something new that Passionists have to incorporate it into our possibility of apostolic life. The other was the tradition of the place where the Passionists settled down, which was the shrine of Immaculate Conception with the big feast in 8th December, and also the octave of 8 days of ceremonies, which we continue till now, up to 16th December. And in this time, there were 6 masses a day, and from the morning to the evening, there were confessions. Big lines of people who'd like to confess. And we have to remember that only one of those religious was the priest who was able to speak in Polish. Only Father Juliusz. Father Pius Falco, after a couple of years, was very fluent in Polish. But in a couple of years, not in the beginning. Father Bartolomeo Rapetti tried to be fluent in Polish, and in many testimonies of his life, it is written that he thought he is. But for Polish people, that was very big act of humility to try to understand him. And that there were many situations that he couldn't understand the Polish mentality. He could understand the language, but he couldn't understand the Polish mentality. For instance, when he came to Przasnysz, when the renovation of the monastery was almost finished, he ordered to build in the garden the cistern for the water. Maybe in Italy it's quite important, especially for the summertime, but we had the river on the side of the monastery. So he applied all the tradition he brought with him from Italy. And sometimes that caused a very funny situation and misunderstandings. In 1932, the Passionist was invited to Sadowie in the other region of Poland, in the west part of Poland. And we opened the second monastery in Sadowie, which is on this picture. And in 1938, the third monastery was opened in Rawa Mazowiecka, which is very important for us and for our story. This is the monastery on the upper photo. This monastery was previously the Augustinian's father, and that was built by the Passionists, so that's why it's so small. We had no resources to build nothing bigger at that time. Passionists also tried to continue the tradition that was that was begun by the Franciscans in Passionist, which was apostolic school. That was something like, I don't know if this right expression in English, the minor seminary. You know what. So it's combining the school, the public school, and some kind of religious life. They called that school the Apostolic School of Saint Gabriel of Our Lady of Sorrow. And we can see the first students of this school. Some of them some of them then entered the congregation. One of those boys, I don't know which, is Father Tito, which was very important for us after the Second World War. But nobody knows which one of them. But many of them then entered congregation. So those boys are not the novices of the congregation. They received something like the habit. It wasn't the habit, it was just the tunic with the small sign as part of the information. But then the tradition changed and they were used their own clothes. I mentioned the school because that was very important and put very strong influence for all the region of Passionist. In that school, Passionist, in that school, Zygmunt Kryszkiewicz, that's the secular name of Father Bernard, met first time the Passionist. Kryszkiewicz was born in Mława. This is the city around 50 kilometers from Passionist. So this is his family home. And in 1925, so we are 2 years after Passionist arrived to Passionist, he didn't receive the promotion to another class. So he was in the 4th grade of gymnasium. So he was a teenager in that time. And his mother tried to find the solution for that situation. She heard that in Passionist there is new religious order, and the religious father opened the school. That was the first year of the school. Opened the school for the boys who had the problems and maybe in the future could become the religious. So she decided to send Zygmunt Kryszkiewicz to the Passionist school. Unfortunately, his father wasn't agree. He was very against being of Father Kryszkiewicz in Passionist monastery. These are the parents of Father Kryszkiewicz and the church he was baptized. What happened then? When he came to our place, when he came to our gymnasium, we could see the very big influence of God's grace on him. It does not mean that he changed in one moment, no. But what was happened to him in couple of next years in the school was described by his mother as the miracle. So the guy who wasn't interested nor in science, in lessons, in reading, nothing like that, nor in prayer, starts to be not only one of the best students, but also starts to be responsible for other pupils, other alumni of the school. When he received his last exam, when he passed his last exam and he received the diploma in 1933, he decided to join the Passionist order. Unfortunately, his father still did not accept his decision. One of the best letters between Father Kryszkiewicz and his relatives are those of him and his father and mother at that time, while he was explaining his decision. These are very, very interesting texts showing how mature he was in that point of his life, and how profound was his decision. It wasn't a decision of the moment. It wasn't the impulse. It was very good, very deeply rethink of decision. He started novitiate in September 1933. Then, after the First War, so he was in Sadovia in that time, in the newly opened monastery. Then, in November 1934, he started his studies first in Passionist, then back in Sadovia, and then in 1936, in the Polish province, we had the visitation of Father Ambrosini, and during this visitation, the General Council, after this visitation, General Council decided to close seminary in Poland. There were two reasons of this decision. The one was the tension between the religious in Poland, the tensions in the negative meaning, and the other was that the level of the studies was very low. So they decided to move all the students to Rome. And that happened in 1936. So he made his perpetual vows in Rome. He received, after 2 years, ordination in Rome. And in that time appears the problem with his health that will have influence for the next years of his life. What was that? What was the kind of the problems with the health? He started to have the very painful headache, especially in the evening. In some moment of the day, it was so intense that he couldn't pray. He couldn't be in the common prayer. So the superiors decide to send him back to Poland, even though he didn't finish his studies. Because after ordination, there was another year preparing for the exam of moral theology to be the confessor. And Father Kryszkiewicz didn't pass this exam, didn't take even the course of the moral theology in Rome, and he was sent to Poland in 1939. What I have to say at this point, in Father Kryszkiewicz letters and writings, we can see very clearly this influence of this stay in Rome. So we can see a very big influence of Passionist spirituality and the influence of the teaching of St. Paul of the Cross. What I have said is that in that time there were no many resources of St. Paul on St. Paul of the Cross. So there were some biographies written in the common style of all the biographies we had in that time. There were no typical edition of the letters and other writings that will appear in the future. But besides that, Father Kryszkiewicz tried to follow the main and the best known part of the spirituality of St. Paul of the Cross, as well, probably that was his personal devotion, as well as the devotion or the spiritual idea of two Teresa of Avila and Teresa of Lisieux. Especially for him was something important. I'm not sure how to say it in English. The little road, the little path, the little way of Saint Teresa of Lisieux. He was very, very interested in this idea, and that was something he knows very, very well. And also in his writings, we can find a lot of expressions that we also can find in our founder writings. We are not sure if it's coincidence, so they could find the same ideas from the meditation on the Passion, or he really knows some writings of St. Paul of the Cross. That we are not sure, because he do not have any notes from the Rome with the quotation of St. Paul of the Cross. There are only 5 or 6 in his writings that we are sure that these are from St. Paul of the Cross. But these are these most well-known ideas, the most well-known. In February 1939, he returned to Rome. And the superiors in Poland tried to organize for him the treatment of this headache. He was sent to the hospital of the Sisters of the Charity near Warsaw. He spent there a couple months trying to treat his health problems. Unfortunately, this treatment didn't work, and this headache will stay with him until his death. Nobody could find the reason of this headache. In some moment of his life, he was very, very happy of this. His sister suggested him that could be the problem of eyes, of the wrong glasses. She found the doctor in Warsaw, but he said that's not this reason, that's not this case. Why this was so important to him to treat this headache? Not because he was afraid of suffering, but because that was very annoying for him, especially with the relation to the brothers and to the religious life. I spoke with Father Gregor yesterday about this case, and the brothers who knew Father Bernard had also this idea that he was too fragile for the religious life, that he tried to find a way to avoid the night prayers, etc., etc. For him, that was another suffer, not the suffer of the body, but the suffer of the spirit. So he really tried to find a way to find the right treatment, unfortunately without any success. But he didn't complain about it. In his letters from that time, he writes about this with very big sense of humor. So, for instance, he wrote to his mother, head like a head, still paying. Maybe they won't cut me this, so maybe they won't cut me the head because of this pain or something like that. So he had this distance for this suffer, for this problem, and for as well as the other things of his life we will see then. In September 1939, so in May 1939, he was appointed to the community in Passionists. And that was just before the Second World War began. In the beginning of September 1939, the community had to leave their home, and they went to the community to Rawa Mazowiecka. Unfortunately, after a couple of days, they realized that it's also it's not the safe place as well. And all the religious communities, so Przasnysz, Rawa, and Sadowie, tried to move on the east as far as it was possible. In 17th of September, the other attack was started from the east. The Soviet Russia starts the war against Poland, and in that moment, there were no other options of escaping, of trying the shelter. So Father Kryszkiewicz in that moment was in the parish which is now on the border of Poland and Belarus, and stayed there for a couple of months with other Polish Passionists. Father Stefan Szafraniec. In that time, he prepared himself by himself to the exam of moral theology. He passed the exam in the bishop palace nearby in Siedlce, and he was allowed to hear the confession. That was the new task, the new job he will do for the next couple years. In April 1940, he decided to return to community in Rawa. That was still the occupation time in Poland. He found the community in Rawa quite good organized, and after his turn back, also 3 students from our seminary came to the community. So Father Bernard was appointed as their director, responsible for their formation, and we called them lector. I don't know how to say it in English. So he was both responsible for both the spiritual path and the intellectual path of the students. Certainly the other fathers also helped him, but he was responsible for them. In that moment, he was very young. So he had 25 years, 26. And he was very absorbed by this new reality, new task that was given to him. He started, so in the biographies we can find, it is written that he started in that moment write something what we called pedagogicum. Pedagogicum is not the book. It's not even the very long text. These are 44 points on the theme of education process of the young people. According to me, he started to write this text earlier, probably when he was in Rome, but he was based on the experience he had in the apostolic school. Because in that time he was also responsible for the younger alumni, for the younger brothers. In this text, in this pedagogicum, he showed us the way how to treat the pupils, the students, with the generosity, with love, and with the very big patience. He showed 4 key points that are very interesting. I will show it in a couple of minutes. So the first point, how looks the pedagogium? Unfortunately, I don't have the scan or the photo of the text because all the writings we have of Father Bernard, these are a couple of notebooks written with the pencil, These are his sketches of his sermons. These are not the sermons, these are the sketches. So these are not complete texts, but it's like some ideas he'd like to present. We had letters that was given to us by his mother after his death with other personal objects. And we found a lot of cards with the prayers. And in between these cards, we found also the Pedagogicum. This is the text on the 2 pages, on the 2 sides of the paper sheet. You can see that he wrote it all of this time. So he started with some idea, then he corrected, then he made some additional points. So that was the process of how he starts to be the pedagogue, the person responsible for the educational process of the students he was responsible for. In the beginning, he wrote this sentence. Jesus taught the apostles with the great patience and gentleness. He waited a long time for the visible results of his teaching. He told them so much about humility, and they still quarrel at the Last Supper. Jesus is not surprised, not indignant. He corrects with gentleness. So we can say that this is the main point where he started. The gentleness, the kindness, which comes from not the Jesus teaching, but from that how Jesus acts to his disciples. So he not only meditated the words that Jesus said to his disciples, but he tried to imitate how he acted. That was something very important. And in other points of his text, we can see the very big influence, not of the great thinker, of the pedagogy, of the psychology of this time, but the great influence of the gospel, of the relation between Jesus and the sinners, of the relation between Jesus and the apostles, etc., etc. So we can say that the Pedagogicum, the method he found, is from discovering the person of Jesus, the personality of Jesus in relation to the others. So that's what are the 4 key points in his teaching, in the Pedagogicum. The first key point is that everything concentrates on Christ. So the Christ is in the center, not only of the life of person, but also the process of education, the process of spiritual direction, etc., etc. The other key point is positive attitude, which is very extraordinary in that time of the history. It's the pedagogical thought was rather on the negative. So what you can't do, how you have to do that. And Father Bernard tried to show to the students as much goodness they have. All the goodness they have, he tried to show them and encourage them to continue the work on these areas of their life and of their studies. So he tried to find the positives in each situation. The other key point is something what I had very big trouble to translate. I translated challenging love. So not the love which is only, okay, so I love you, so do what you want. No. I love you, and because I love you, I try to challenge you to be better. This is also something what comes from the meditation of the Passion, because the love of Jesus is not a love that's one of the on one of the presentation we saw the quote where was written that there were two thieves on the crosses on the sides of Jesus, and only one of them was saved. Yeah? Because this love of Jesus has to find some response from us, from ourselves. So also the love of Jesus challenges us to live this love in our life. So challenging love, and the last one is the patience. So we can't expect that someone will change his life in 1 minute because we want that, because we said to him something very important or something like that. No, the changing in life needs time. What is very big discover of this very small text of 44 points, 44 sentences, for the pedagogues of today, for the people who are scientific, so they work at the university on this subject, is that the method of Bernard is not the method how to teach someone something, but is the method how to change yourself, to be a good guide, good teacher to the others. So this is the method of a constant work on oneself, on myself. So if I'd like to be the good guide for the YAF, if I'd like to be the good teacher, I have to start with myself. I have to start with changing my point of view. And in these 44 points, he mentioned all the possibilities we can see in the work on ourselves. In the point, I think that's number 5, he wrote this. If you were to remove just one imperfection from yourself in a year, you would soon become a saint. That's the quote of St. Augustine. If this is the case with personal improvement, which one desires with all one's heart, how can one be surprised if the improvement of one's neighbors progress too slowly? It is possible to inspire your neighbor with the kind of zeal, the desire for improvement that you have in yourself. It's a little difficult not to want to improve too quickly. That's my personally the favorite sentence. Not to improve too quickly means we have time, but this progress have to have time, have to have some program. So he's saying that try to change one imperfection a year. That's the start point. Like the Teresa in this small way of life, of perfection. Do the small step, but do this step. We sometimes thought about the big changes we have to do, but we stop only with thinking of this changing, and we do not act. And Father Bernard showed us the way of doing these small steps, but doing it constantly and with very big desire of being better and being saint. Because for him, the educational process was also the process in which we'd like to lead the students to the sainthood. So he also gave us this condition of the good guide on the spiritual path. So the first point is the good example of the guide of the parents, of the teacher. The second I think that's quite obvious. The second one, maybe I can add one thing. In his points, he wrote that this good example is, no, that was in one of his sermons. This good example is not for, like the actor do the performance for the students or for the audience. So the teacher cannot be the actor who is playing the role. He has to live what he'd like to invite the others. So this good example is the example of whole life, not only what is visible to the others. The second point is the guarding or care. And it not means that we have to close. Sometimes parents nowadays are doing that they are closing their children in the safe space without anything that could do something wrong to them. It's not like that. It's to protect, but not as the covering someone. But what wrote Father Bernard is like the friend who is accompanying you, and he is always ready to catch your hand when you need it. So it's something like that. So be nearby and be ready to help if it's needed. And the third point is generosity. So you can't limit yourself to what you have to do. You have to be open for the needs of those who you are responsible for. And the last point is the prayer. And Father Bernard is saying that without the prayer, all the other stuff, all what we are doing, is based only on our own forces, without the help of God. Yes, I know. Yes, thank you. We are going to the end. During his stay in Rawa Mazowiecka, he was also a well-known confessor. That was the very terrible time of war and occupation, persecution. In Rawa Mazowiecka, there were a lot of refugees from other parts of Poland. So Father Bernard wasn't involved in other kind of activities that other religious had to do. So he had time to sit in his confessional and hear the confessions, and also gave a lot of spiritual directions. And in the testimonies we have, we collected during the process, we can find a lot of people came to him to find the hope in that terrible time. This is our church in Rawa Mazowiecka. It's more or less like it was in the time of Father Bernard. His confessional was on this side. On the other side, there are two crosses. One is nearby the main altar. We will see on the next picture. And one of the cross is nearby the entrance of the church. The church is very small. Maybe twice like this room, so it's quite small. So Father Bernard could see this cross nearby the entrance, and he could see that many people comes to the church and they are praying in front of this cross. So he decided to prepare some help for those people who came, who are trying to find the hope in this time, some kind of meditation. He wrote 10 meditation on the Passion in the style of the dialogue, which Father Paul Francis said us that he didn't like. So he wrote it on the card of the paper, and one of the ladies rewrite it on the type machine. Typewriter. Sorry, typewriter. On the typewriter, and he put the text just in front of this crucifix. And many people comes to the church and could use it as the help for the meditation. He started this work in the Lent, but he continues it a little bit after. So we are sure that 9 of these meditations were put it in front of the crucifix. One is a little bit different, and we are not sure if it was the part of this meditation or it's something else. The meditation he wrote is very simple, very simple. It's based on this very simple version of meditation that Father Paul Francis remind us that was prepared for the novices. So these 4 questions: who suffer, what suffer, etc. This kind of meditation was very well known in Poland, even before the Passionists came to Poland. The questions are a little bit different, but it was very well known. We have a lot of texts from the 16th, 17th, and 18th century based on these very simple questions and showing the love of God on the cross. Father Bernard also added to this meditation the very actual questions of the people. So these are not only the dialogues or meditation on the Passion of Christ in the historical sense, but also he tried to show the connection between the past times, the gospel times, the Jesus times, and our times. So we can see the titles, the subtitles of these meditations, which were added in the edition. It's not the original titles given by Father Bernard. He just wrote the meditation and just left it in the church without any title. So the first meditation is the problem of the suffering. Why we are suffering? Why there is suffering? And you can imagine that question was arised a lot of time during the Second World War. In that time, Father Bernard had no information about his brother, who now we know he died in that time. So many people who were in the same situation, so they didn't know nothing about their relatives in other parts of Poland. There were no communication, there were no possibilities to check the information about them. So they came, and many of them died, certainly. So they came with this question: why there is so much suffering? The second is closer to the cross, brighter. Means if you are closer to the cross, you can see brighter the God answer for the question of suffering. The third one is why am I sad? The fourth, how to meditate on the Passion of Christ. And the fifth is the continue of this one, so how to meditate. The sixth is mystery of the altar, the mystery of the cross. And the eighth one will be on the same theme. So connection between the Passion and the sacrifice of Christ, which we celebrate during the Mass. The seventh is redemption by the miracle of love, and ninth, Mass, the center of the Church, and 10th, to the Father for sacrifice, to the people for food. Those are connected with the sacraments, not only the Eucharist, but also the sacrament of the penitence. These dialogues are very simple. So if someone is looking the text for the meditation and he or she is very advanced in meditation won't find nothing interesting here. And that's why for the long time this meditation was said that it's nothing very special. And there were no typical editions, there were no research on this meditation, because if Father Dominic, who was the postulator of the process, asked someone to write something about this, the theologian said, it's so basic, it's so simple, nothing interesting. But this is the key point of this meditation. That was for the people who were without any theological education, sometimes without any education, only the basic, how to read, how to write, etc. So, and also could be very useful for those who starts the meditation, the Passion. So as the source for those who try to find the right way to meditate the Passion. The last point I want to touch is that for Father Bernard, the meditation of the Passion of Christ wasn't theory. It wasn't theory for him. When in October 1945, the Warsaw Uprising was ended, a lot of refugees escaped from the destroyed city. Many of them came to Rawa Mazowiecka. Father Bernard opened the monastery with the permission of the superior for those who need the shelter, the place to stay. Unfortunately, January 16th, 1945, the Soviets starts to shelling also the city of Rawa Mazowiecka. In that time, very dangerous time, after the bomb stops dropping, Father Bernard went to the city to brought to the monastery all those wounded people. He organized for them some simple hospital. He tried to give as much care as he can for those who suffered. So this is only one of the situation we can see. So that's the picture of Father Bernard trying to in Rawa during the occupation time. So that's the one thing, one example. But in the testimonies we can find a lot of examples of his compassion for those who suffer. And not only in words, that he said, okay, you suffer, God will help you, etc. No, he tried to help by himself in all the way it was possible for the religious in that time. But he tried to do all the best he could to help the people in need. And for him, that was the last step of meditation. So he saw the example of Jesus. And he didn't want only see it in his mind, but he also wanted to imitate, imitation of the Christ. So I think that's the right word. So he'd like to go the same way Jesus went up to his cross. Sometimes we are saying that we'd like to imitate Christ when it touches the very good part of his life. I don't know, the Cana or the resurrection, or I don't know, the sharing of the bread or something like that. But we have to know that the Christ said that we have to carry our own cross and imitate him, go with him also to the Calvary, which is very difficult. And he did it by his life. And the last part of his life was in Passionist. So when the war was going to end, he was appointed as the superior of the Passionist monastery. He was there to rebuild the monastery, to bring back the community life there. But he also starts to seek those who are in need, also in Passionist. In the very last moments of his life, in last months of his life, he found a very poor lady. He was asked to go there with the sacraments, with the last sacraments. And he found this lady without any help, in a very, very bad condition, without any food supply, etc. So he tried to organize help for her. Unfortunately, she was sick for typho, I think it's. Yes. And he also gets sick, and a couple weeks later he died in the hospital in Passionist. So certainly that was the heroic love to the other, love to the neighbor. But it wasn't his own sense of, how to say it? It wasn't his own point of view that I need to help to the others. That was the result of his meditation. That was the result of his whole life as the Passionist priest. That was what he saw in the crucified Jesus. So he did not only want to meditate, contemplate, but he also wanted to act. In one of the previous slides, I put the quote, I think that it's from the Pope Gregory the Great. I found it in Trattamenti Spirituali of Father Bernard Silvestrelli, which says that love needs the acts. Love needs some kind of act. So, in Father Bernard's life, we could see this kind of sense of the prayer, which then pushed him, or us, to act like we can see, we can meditate in the Passion of Christ. And so,
thank you.
I'm out of
Thank you.
time.
The story of a life, and at the end of the day was caught up in great crises of the war, reminiscent, I suppose, of many of the things in your province are caught up at the moment in Ukraine, because it extends into Ukraine, and we know that you have been very deeply involved in the province in the crisis. So you have a historical memory in Father Bernard that also leads you in that regard. Thank you very much. We've come to the end of the session. Our afternoon tea awaits. We will be coming back for anything after that. Thank you, Father.